to say that it was actually a 7 on 10. It would have been a 10 on 10, but there was a couple of issues. So let me show you the first one. One of our problems is the fact that our monitors are just too thin. On the bottom, it was perfectly okay. So the clamp touched both sides of each monitor, but at the top, because these monitors sort of curve inwards, I actually needed to fold up a piece of cardboard and add it here as a shim. If not, this thing was really just flopping around doing nothing, and the effect that it gave on the screen looked really, really weird. So right now it's pretty much in place, but this is something that ASUS obviously didn't take into account, or their ROG monitors that this is compatible with are a lot thicker than what we're using here. Another problem that we saw is the Philips monitors. They're really inexpensive. I think they're like 150 US, and they don't have any pivot and they don't have any height adjustment. They only have tilt, and they didn't align properly across every monitor. So we had to do a little bit of jimmying to get all of that aligned so the vertical refraction would actually work. Finally, I think Eber has a couple of thoughts about the OSD2 because he brought up something that I wasn't even thinking about.
Yeah, because if you think about it, typically most monitors come with buttons, OSD adjustment buttons on the right-hand side. It could be either a joystick or it could be even at the back. But when you have this installed, some monitors, particularly, it would be difficult to adjust those settings because you might have to like take the entire kit again, do your thing, and then put it back.
Yeah, and the other thing that we noticed is we had to completely redo our bezel correction. We had to turn it off. The reason for that is simply because there are no bezels right now, so you had to go to the minimum amount. And even now, there is a little bit of warping that you can see in some parts of the image. But we're gonna take a look at this for a couple more days, get our thoughts, and get back to you guys.
298 frozen patties later.
All right, guys. We're back after a couple of days, and for once it wasn't me doing the testing like most of the monitor reviews. It was actually Eber playing the games, doing a couple of productivity tests on this thing. But I did want to talk a little bit about my observations from the quick time that I spent with it. So first of all, I really like what ASUS was able to do with this. I love it when a dumb piece of technology acts smart instead of a smart tech being dumb. On the flip side of that coin, 110 bucks for 2 pieces of plastic, I think it's a little bit expensive for what it actually does. Now, would I recommend it? It's damn innovative, but I actually wouldn't. And the reason for that is, first of all, I really don't like the issue that ASUS brought upon themselves by making this compatible with 20mm and thicker monitors. Most monitors on the market nowadays, and even something that you bought within the last maybe 5 years, is going to be smaller than that. So you're going to have compatibility issues. I actually found myself just preferring there to be bezels. The reason for that is the area impacted by the bezel-free kit is actually larger than just having some slim bezels there. Another thing that I really found myself hesitating about is the fact if you're using only 2 monitors and that seam is right in the middle, the bezel-free kit could distort a huge amount of the visible space, especially when you're using a smaller monitor. Now, I know that you had some additional observations about gaming and productivity, and I want to hear those because you've been using this thing for quite a while now.
Yeah, so I do want to emphasize this on the ROG bezel-free kit. It is by no means a permanent solution. In fact, I did run into a lot of issues when I was just doing casual stuff, non-gaming tasks, something that's more productive. So the first thing I noticed that there were a lot of things that were simply just cut off from one screen to the next. So as you can see by the shot, texts are being cut, like images are being cut. It really isn't a seamless transition going from one monitor to the other. The next issue that I encountered was right around the top corners of the display where the bezel-free kit is installed. I noticed a crossfade between those monitors, especially the corners. So it was difficult for me to see the X icon, or if I was having trouble just reaching them because I had to look twice.
So sometimes you couldn't actually close it.
I couldn't actually close the window. I would automatically, or I would accidentally go to the next window that's sitting on the next monitor.
But what about gaming? What about the immersion when gaming? Does it improve?
It was amazing. I did try a few titles like Battlefield 1, which is an FPS title, and the experience was just amazing. I also tried a few racing games like Need for Speed Payback, which didn't really work that well because there was a weird crop in the game. That was kind of unfortunate, but Forza ran amazing, guys. I mean, I really had fun.
Now I'm jealous.
Yeah, I really had fun with that game. So
I've got another question for you though.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't able to experience it in quite the same way. Is since that they're in your peripheral vision, did the bezels, when they were there, ever become an issue with your gameplay experience?
Not really. Unless if you look at the if you're being really nitpicky, you probably would notice that there's a different shade because obviously you're putting a piece of plastic in between the bezels. So color uniformity or the way how the display looks is obviously going to be an issue. But realistically, it doesn't affect peripheral vision. To me, like it was just a beautiful experience.
But what about mini maps, for example? Like in a strategy game or in something like Dota, you rely on that mini map in the top right-hand corner to give you spatial awareness about what's going on around you on the battlefield.
I think that would be a little bit of an issue, but personally for the games that I play, it doesn't really matter.
So it's really, really one-dimensional. You need to play the right games. You can't do anything else on your monitors. It costs $110.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's a luxury item. So I think that's pretty much the conclusion.
Yeah.
So I hope that you guys enjoyed this. It was a little bit different for both of us.
Yeah.
And
let me know what you guys think about this kit. I mean, if you are rocking a triple monitor setup, would you consider spending $110 on 2 pieces of plastic and some holders, which, you know, is another story. Curious to know. I'm Ibor with Hardware Canucks.
I'm Mike.
And we'll talk to you guys
In the next one.
in the next one.
All right.
Welcome to Make Something with me, David Pachuto, and today we're going to drop a router lift into an already existing benchtop. Hopefully you can use this information to save space in your shop or to learn how to make a router table with dust collection and bit storage. Before we get started, I just want to say, up until this point, I have edited every single video, but today, this video that you're watching right now, Camera Dan is editing. This is his very first edit. So if you like it, give him a high five. If you don't like it, maybe this time you can keep your opinions to yourself. He's sensitive. I'm sensitive. We're all sensitive. Also, there's no reason for me to be filming back here in the new corner. I'm just showing off the new corner. Check it. This is my current router situation. I bought this stand and added to it a few years ago, and this has worked great. But recently we added this little confessional corner area, and this is now invading that space. To make up more space in the shop, I'm going to pull out the router lift, and it's going to go into the miter station. It's gonna be a little tricky because I'll show you. We need to have a hole for this to drop into, but also have a little lip and little adjustable screws in here. That's dirty. Dan, take a look at that. If you're wondering, that's the Incra router lift. I've had it for years, no complaints. And then just the Porter cable router that everybody has. I think the first thing I need to do, make a little wood template to the exact size of this, so we can have a router bit follow that wood template. You might have to get a little creative with the clamps, depending on the positioning of your table here. You could even screw that down if you wanted to, but this is the bit that we're going to use. It's got a bearing there on the shaft. That's going to ride along that template right there. So I've got my first pass. I don't have to do the whole thing because we're gonna take a jigsaw and cut that out. What I did find was I didn't have support on this side and the router would tip, so it kind of dug in a couple spots. So I took this piece of scrap and put it in the middle there to give me support on all the sides. You can also make a bigger base. I just wasn't thinking, but it'll be fine because none of this is going to be seen. But I did end up eating into my template a little bit, which might give me a little, you know what I'm saying? It's shop furniture. I mean, it is walnut, but it's shop furniture. So now I'm going to raise the bit and do a second and final pass along the edges. So we have that second pass. Hopefully it's the right depth. And we're going to cut out this little section right here with the jigsaw. This would drop in like so. Okay, so we gotta. No! One more time, Dan. Dan, when I say one more time, I actually mean 2 more times. I will kill you. This one, if it doesn't work, we're gonna quit woodworking. It all rides on this. That fits in there. It's just below the surface, so we got to get some set screws and put them in there. I'm sure this router lift came with set screws, and I'm sure I've lost them, so I need to go get some. But that will level it out, and you want it exactly the same height as the table. To mount it to the table, these are the bolts there. I'm just gonna push that through and then put a nut on the bottom to secure that. So now we'll take out this T-track, throw it over here, and route a little groove for it to drop in there. Don't put that in there. Now, whew. So I just gotta take a chisel, clean up that area right there. Ah, son of a bitch. We need to add a fence, so I need to create 2 slots with a hole there over here, but we have one problem, is we've got the T-track